Well, hello everybody. It is the day after Christmas, and I woke up this morning to watch a video that by a guy I haven't seen this guy before. I think I might have heard of the podcast. It's the Reptiles at Home podcast. And the video was about this new documentary that's going to be coming out from the same guy that did the Tiger King. But this time it's going to be most likely about reptiles and the reptile world. And a lot of people are deeply entrenched in that I know about. I've heard plenty of things. I'm also deep into it, and I kind of wanted to give some thoughts on it. I know that there are people who will not agree with what I'm about to say, which is fine. There's just a difference in my mentality versus a lot of people. To me, there's a difference between reptile keepers and animal people. It doesn't mean that they don't overlap, but there's animal people and there's reptile keepers. We all know the keepers, that all they do is want to own more animals, and that's not necessarily an issue, but you get some fringe people in that group. You also get the animal people who love animals in general and will have a few really cool things. But like, as an example, I would consider myself a little bit of both. There is a little bit of overlap. I obviously have some animals. I have a bunch of anoles. These are anoles, so they're smaller animals in there. I got a sulcata tortoise right back here. I got more anoles in a giant 90-gallon thing, and I have an amphiuma in a 40-gallon tank, and I have a bearded dragon. So I do have animals. But I'm not really a breeder of animals. I'm working on some projects with some anoles, but I don't have racks upon racks upon racks of ball pythons. And some people can argue the efficacy of keeping animals in smaller things like that. I'm not a big fan of it. Doesn't mean I haven't done it before, but I realize there's better ways to do it. And that's one of the things that one of the main people that are probably going to be talked about in this documentary, Tom Crutchfield, that's one thing that I will admit he is very adamant about. He's a very interesting character. I've met him one time. He probably doesn't remember it. It was after an FWC meeting, the one I talked at, where right after that whole boa killing thing happened. Okay, so he was there, and I shook his hand and said hello and heard him talk for a minute, and nothing serious. I do live in Florida. I live hours and hours and hours away from South Florida. It takes 4 or 5 hours for me to get down to Miami. So even though to somebody in Wisconsin that seems like it's not that far, it's still far enough where it's like I don't live right in the middle of it. And a lot of the stuff does come out of that South Florida, Miami area, because that's where a lot of the animals and especially a lot of these things live. So if I go outside in my yard, I'm not going to see iguanas. I'm not. I have to go hours south for that. So there is a difference between North and South Florida. There are a lot of things that I didn't know about Tom Crutchfield because I didn't necessarily grow up in this world. I've come into it on my own in the last few years, so I'm hearing some of this stuff. Tom Crutchfield is older and in a different generation. He's older than my parents. He was involved, the year I was born in 1995, he went to jail for animal smuggling. He's been caught multiple times and has done some what would be considered pretty bad stuff. He broke the law. That it is what it is. I'm not necessarily going to judge him because I don't know the full story, but I've heard this stuff. This is not like a new rumor to me. I've heard this stuff on multiple occasions. And I bring this up because in the animal world, the reptile world, Tom Crutchfield is definitely held to a very high regard. I feel like he has probably changed his ways, and some people say that's pulling up the ladder behind him, which may be the truth. I don't know him like that personally, so I don't know if he's always felt that way and just over time has decided to not be in it as much. I don't know. I'm not going to speak ill upon him in that way. I'm just, from my understanding, he was into the smuggling. And then, as he got older, decided not to be into the smuggling as much. You know, he advocates for proper keeping. He does. He's got one of the best facilities I've seen, at least, you know, from the internet point of view. I think that he definitely has the right perspective on those things. But that doesn't mean he didn't do bad stuff. And this documentary, I've heard about it for a while now. I've heard rumors about it, and my thoughts on it were that this is like an expose, like, I'm out of this industry now. I'm pretty much getting towards the end here, and, you know, I'm going to spill the beans on all this bad stuff. And that's the way it comes off to me. I could be wrong on that. Hopefully I am, but it feels like the tides are shifting. I would like to say that the way I feel about it is probably the better direction. Like, when it comes to animals, of course, everybody wants to feel that way. One thing that the Reptiles at Home podcast, the guy talked about, was that, like, there's an issue with the way people keep reptiles in, like, these rack systems. And I know I just mentioned that a little bit ago, but I completely agree with that. I feel like he also discussed how there's people who are in it for the money, and there's people who are in it for their animals. And that he felt Tom Crutchfield kind of was right in the middle. And I can definitely see that. I think that I get criticized. Okay? We know who you are, Go Herp. I see you commenting. Like, I get called a poacher because I go out and catch non-native and invasive species out of the wild of Florida, and I sell them. I'm making a living removing those species. If you feel that's bad, we have a different mentality. But you're probably the same type of person who has racks of ball pythons and think that's absolutely fine because they live in burrows where they're from. To me, like, that's where my overlap comes in. Like, what? It doesn't make sense to me. You're okay with this thing that doesn't really seem ethical at all, but I'm trying to take out invasive and non-native species from the wild to help our native populations, and I'm poaching. We attack each other on so many different levels that doesn't make sense. I don't get it. Also, screw you for the copyright stuff, okay? I used a clip of yours for a video I was doing that had nothing to do with your video. I was just using a little bit of a clip like I've done however many times. If you wanted me to take it down, all you had to do was ask. You didn't have to copyright strike me. Screw you. Anyway. Sorry. Get a little heated. So all of this stuff is going to culminate into, honestly, who knows? There are arguments that laws are going to change, and here's the thing. I've been doing this at this point long enough to see all these law changes and what actually happens, and I feel like it could go either way. Okay? We're not dealing with tigers. It's understandable that tigers would be banned, or there should be heavier restrictions on large animals that can do damage. There are reptile keepers who keep large animals that can do damage, like crocodilians. I feel like, for the most part now, the laws that are in place work. In Florida, at least. It's different all over the place. Okay? Some laws in some states allow you to keep crocodilians without any permits. Down here in Florida, it's hard. Okay? I don't have the permits. It would be difficult for me to get them. Same thing with venomous snakes. You have to work for it here in Florida. I'm okay with that. Some people aren't okay with that. Some people think that's infringing on your rights. Okay? I think that if we were able to keep whatever we wanted to without, certain species having permits in Florida, it would be a bigger issue. You get this Jeffrey Leibowitz guy. I think I'm just going to say how most of us feel about it. Just a straight up douchebag who is also a straight up dumbass. There's no better way to say it. Like, who is on this guy's side? I don't think anybody is. I haven't talked to anybody who's like, no, he's a good... Nobody... Sure, you might have some people making comments down below. He's the guy who recently almost died because he got bit by his pet inland taipan because you just grab it by the middle of the body. That dude. dumbass. You are the bad name that reptile keepers have. One of them. I've heard that he might be part of it. I know he was bragging about stuff. Who knows if he is? That's Hollywood for you. They're going to make it seem as bad as possible. There are too many people who are afraid of stepping on toes when people don't do things right. You know, I remember a few years back, before Brian Barczyk got sick, it was probably 2016, 2017, something like that. I remember people freaking out over him because he wasn't taking care of his retic right. Like, people were talking about how it had died or it was sick or something like that. Like, there was all this drama that had to do with keepers, and people were making videos and calling him out and saying all this stuff. Brian Barczyk was one of the better ones, okay? I think most people can agree on that. Jay's Prehistoric Reptiles. I may think that he is going out of his way to make the pythons, you know, seem more aggressive, to get that click, to get that strike video, to get bit, and I think that's ridiculous. But even with all of that, he's not Jeffrey Leibowitz, okay? There's a difference. There is a big difference. And if people are willing to call out that, you need to be able to call out the people who are not doing things right. You can try to call me out. Go ahead. You're taking animals out of the wild. I have my class 3 permit. I am 100% legal. I don't deal with anything that could get me in legal trouble. No tegus, no iguanas, no Burmese python. I don't deal with any of that stuff. I don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. I don't even go out looking for them, okay? Because I don't want to deal with them. Now, if iguanas became legal and I was able to get permits to be able to sell them, I would be taking 1,000 out of the environment a week. That's my view of conservation now. Okay? Florida is being destroyed, thousands of acres every day. There's nothing we can do about it to a degree, at least that I can do about it. The only thing I can do about it right now is hopefully make the environment that is still there more livable for the species that are there. Until, in the future things will change and I will hopefully be more involved in being able to actually physically do something. But my point is that right now, this is what I can do to still make a living and provide for myself while also trying to make a bit of a difference. And if you have a problem, you think that's poaching, you need to learn the definition of poaching. There's nothing illegal about what I'm doing. There's plenty of illegal things about what Tom Crutchfield used to do. Okay? So people bootlick him, which is fine. You can have your prerogative. But this is where we're at. You don't call out the bad actors. You don't hold them to account. And when I say bad actors, I even mean people who take really good care of their animals that keep them in rack systems. That's ridiculous. And I've done it before. And I realize that it's not a good thing. That, to me, is going to be the next big thing that gets revealed. It's also not good for the hobby. I don't think so. You're not protecting anything. You're not promoting conservation. You're not doing anything. That's you trying to make money on the animal. And that's all you're doing with it. And, you can make your arguments all you want that that's what I'm doing too. That's fine. My animals that I deal with are no longer in the wilds out competing native species. Your ball python or leopard gecko that you have in your rack, that's just an animal that's living a terrible life in a rack. So I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Just to give you an example, is my 90-gallon tank, and there's a few anoles in there. I got a few of them, but that's 90 gallons right there. Okay, same thing with up here. Look at that. I got a few pretty red anoles in there. I got a few Hispaniola and green anoles in there. Okay. Plants, naturalistic. They got space to move around. They're fat and healthy because I feed them every week. Yeah, I think there's a difference. But anyway, with all that being said, thank you guys for watching. I do appreciate it. This was just basically thoughts I had on some of the stuff that's probably going to be coming up in the future. and that we're going to have to deal with the repercussions of, and kind of putting it out there. You know, don't be surprised if some of your favorite animal creators are not the saints that you either thought they were, or pull the ladder up behind them, because that could be what this is, and it could not be. I could be wrong, but I think it's time we start holding people to account for their, you know, the way that they do things and are handled. You know, I get it. People don't like drama. They don't. But at the same time, they do. And as long as they feel like it's righteous drama, well, Brian Bartek doesn't take care of his reticulated python. That's who you're going to go after. You know, rest in peace. But that's who you're going to go after when, you know, and he kept stuff in rack systems. They all do. New England Reptiles. Like, I understand that they care about their animals. They do. But, like, I don't know. I'm just poking a bee's nest at this point. But let me know what you think down below. Whether you think I'm right or wrong. That's fine. I could be wrong. This is just me spitting what's on top of my head. And I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you on the next one.